I hope this finds you well and safe and in good health and sane, mostly sane. Are you willing to go back to the beginning? A friend of mine's said that to me so many years ago. He said it like this actually. He said, when all else fails, go back to the beginning. He was an acrobat and he was a part of a troupe called the Survivors. And the Survivors, they had no net. They were an aerial troupe and they were doing all these fantastic feats. Well, on one particular day during rehearsals, he fell, and he fell about 25, 30 feet, and there was an airbag there, but he missed it. He was banged up pretty badly, but he eventually recovered. It took him a while, but he recovered, and he recovered well, and he's since gone on to have a substantial career as a stuntman in the film industry, I believe out in South Africa, as he is South African. And he and I would have such wonderful conversations, and he was telling me about that period of his life, which was very daunting for him. And I remember it was incredibly challenging for him because he didn't know if he'd ever be able to use his body like he did before. And he said, Jonty, as he called me, he said, when I was in it, he said, the thing I discovered, when all else, he says, when all else fails, you go back to the beginning. Go back to the beginning. And that was really, that reverberated with me. That reverberated with me. And I think this is a time, this particular time we're living in, that's the invite. That's the invite. And it's somewhat of a pruning season, of course. There are things that will likely have to be cut away in our lives for us to be fruitful and grow. But I think instead of being overwhelmed by the woes and stresses that we are encountering, and they are real. People have bills don't stop, and you have things you want to provide, you need to provide for, you have obligations. It's understandable. But I implore you, as my friend once said, to go back to the beginning. Maybe this is a time for you to get to the business of your purpose. Because we know for a fact the overwhelming majority of us live purposeless lives. We live lives that are just going in the motions. We're not even operating in accordance to our factory settings. And that really is the anchor of so much of our unhappiness and our dysfunctional relationships. That's at the bottom of it. We're not being who we are. This week I mourned the loss of a remarkable man who I had the privilege of meeting and knowing, and who was just a tremendous, tremendous human being. His name was Dr. Ravi Zacharias. Dr. Ravi Zacharias. And he was a famed author and evangelist, apologist who scoured the earth, sharing the gospel and sharing his faith in Jesus Christ, but with the mission to help the thinker believe in the believer to think. And I would like to invite anybody who is an honest skeptic, who is open in their search for truth and faith and all of those things, or who just loves an intellectual, to be intellectually stimulated. I invite you to venture onto YouTube or the bookstore, because there's books aplenty, they're always available, and listen to this man's messages. At the very least, they will make you think. At the very least, they will make you think. But anyway, I was thinking about him and mourning him, of course. And more importantly, I was celebrating him, because as you will see if you venture over to YouTube, as I told you, or if you read any of his books, it becomes clear this was a person who lived out what he was designed and made to do. And we all know what that's like, what it's like to encounter people like that, to be in the presence of people like that. They operate differently. It's not like they're not unaffected by the challenges of life, but their very demeanor, everything about them is so aligned that it gives us the delusion that they have it all together, and they don't. They falter like we do. They have challenges like we do, but they are anchored in purpose. And they are sure about it. And that is the great peace that they have through whatever life is taking them through. Whatever life is doing, they are in the anchor. They are anchored in purpose. And it's one of those remarkable and beautiful things that I witnessed countless times. You'll witness it a lot if you're in arts, but I witnessed it almost incessantly when I was in the circus, watching people who are literally in their place. It's a beautiful thing to see because they're so remarkably anchored that it transcends their actual field. I didn't have to be, and I don't, I have no inclination toward animals. I'm not an animal person whatsoever, sorry. I grew up in New York. The most exotic it got for me was squirrels, an occasional carriage horse. But when I encountered Gunther Gable Williams, it was that thing I saw in him. And I saw it with how he conducted himself with animals and how transcendent that spirit was to he had this universal respect. He was just known for that thing and how excellent he did it. And it wasn't just the excellence, it was just the spirit of it, the zeal that just permeated through everything he did. Same thing with this aerialist I knew, God rest his soul, beautiful man. He was I had the privilege of sharing a dressing room with him. Mark David was his name, and he was he was gorgeous. I'm a flaming heterosexual, but I can tell you he was a walking Ken doll. And he was amazing, man. I never looked upon a human being, needless to say a man, with such awe when he was working. I mean, to see him fly up there, no net, no safety harness, nothing. Catching himself by his heels, 30 feet, 40 feet in the air, above the audience. And you can see in him, this was what he was designed to do. And it was glorious. And he and I would pick his brain about his process, and he would talk to me about, his training and all those things. And he, like everybody else, like Gunther, like me, like you, they had their challenges, but they were anchored in purpose. And so the real meaning of this Sunday reflection, as the bird is doing what it's supposed to do, is in fact that. Are you about your Father's business? We have it so backwards. We spend so much of our time, our education system, our families, all train us to go for the stuff, to go for things, security, at the expense of what it is we actually are. And boy, you miss a whole lot of life chasing stuff and this fleeting security, because there is none if this present age has shown you anything, if COVID-19 has taught you anything. No one's too big to fail, and no one's too big to thwart the hand of change. There is no security. I don't care how much insurance you buy. And I hope you do buy insurance. But I digress. The reality is, when you seek first the kingdom and its righteousness, all these things Everything else, all these things shall be added unto you. In other words, everything you need will be there. So it does us no good to be enveloped in the exercise of worry and stress about things we cannot control, things you truly have no dominion over. But what you do have a say in is the decision to operate according to what it is you really are. I was talking to a wonderful friend of mine who is also in the live entertainment industry, live event industry, and she and I were just going back and forth about what can we do now, because it's true. Anybody who's in live entertainment, live events, we all know our world has changed. And it will never be the same. And we're going to have to diversify how we express ourselves. And as she and I spoke, it was so funny. And she said, because I was talking to her about certain things I was looking into doing as far as in the meantime work. And she said, I'm just not made for the cubicle. She said, I'm not made for the cubicle. I'm not made for 9 to 5. I'm a creator. That's what I do. That's what brings me to life. And that's what I mean, ladies and gentlemen. We have been made to have life in abundance. We truly have been. And I think we snuff ourselves out. Many of us go to early graves, incomplete, lemons, so to speak, duds, malfunction, because we refuse to operate in accordance to what it is we were designed for and who we were made to be. And so that's what it is I really want to share with you. Are you daring to go back to the beginning? Are you daring enough to really look inside yourself and cultivate that person, that purpose? Are you daring to be about the Father's business? Because truly, there is no other life but that. There truly isn't. There's nothing more quote unquote secure than that. Nothing that will steady you more than that. Whatever it is you are, and whoever it is you are, be that as best you can. You all have a wonderful Sunday.